All right. Let me do the full screen.
Yeah. Right. It's come on.
Okay. So I'll start with. I'll try to do the things which Deepak has. I will not try to duplicate it. So the COP system is fairly complicated over the years. It's become a forest of things. The yellow boxes are the agreements, and the year they entered into force and the number of parties. The green three, there were three COPs going on at the same time, chaired by Alok Sharma. And there were a number of, in the light blue, you have the subsidiary bodies, which are working on various aspects of climate change. In the green box, you have the groups, and the groups have become an alphabet soup. You have G77, European Union, Environmental Integrity Group led by Switzerland, which is like the hawk on protection on climate change. Umbrella Group, which is more or less the fossil fuel countries. And then you have African, like-minded developing countries. We belong to that. Island states, AOSIS, and then some Latin American countries, the BASIC Group, Arab, and ABU, which is Argentina, Brazil, and Uruguay, and so on. And then you have a number of NGOs which are active, local government and municipal authorities. They're very important because it is they who will actually do the actions. Research institutions, that's RINGO, trade unions, business and industry, and then all kinds of other groups. So there were about 39,500 participants. It's a record. And in fact, they were running out of space for many of the actual physical meetings. Chair Alok Sharma did a very good job in handling this whole complex system and coming out with results. The mechanism used is a contact group. Whenever there's an issue on which there are difference of views, the chair sets up a small contact group, usually led by one developed and one developing country, and they try to work out a thing and come back to the chair. So that mechanism has been used all along and it's worked all right. There was a World Leaders Summit, 2 days, 120 leaders attended, which is a great number. And it was decided to have the next COP in Sharm el-Sheikh, Egypt, and after that in UAE. So these were the main issues and the results. The pact, climate pact was adopted, which keeps the target of 1.5 within reach. There was a mention of phasing down of coal and fuel subsidies for the first time. And the total NDCs before COP would have led to 2.7 degree warming. And if you include what was pledged at COP, then you can reduce that by about 0.3 degrees Celsius. So COP26, if all these things are implemented, we succeeded in reducing the target of global warming by 0.3 degrees Celsius, according to the scientists. Then there was a leaders' declaration on forests, and then a dialogue was started on loss and damage, because many developing countries, this is a huge issue for them. They wanted this done. And the other very important result was the Paris Agreement outstanding issues were settled, which were dealing with carbon credits, clean development mechanism, all that. So all that stuff was settled, and now the way is open for the whole system of carbon credits and trading, and one country implementing projects in the other. The disappointing aspect was on climate finance and loss and damage issues. The target of 100 billion per year was not met. Developed countries admitted that, and this was seen as a breach of trust and strongly attacked by developing countries. So the pressure has been kept on them that they should meet the target urgently through to 2025. And developing countries asked for a climate finance of between 0.75 and 1.3 trillion, and for predictable grant-based climate finance. Of course, they won't get it, but we have to keep the pressure and ask for it. And some agreements were reached on the level of adaptation finance and trying to reach the 100 billion goal, and a work program on new finance targets beyond that period of 2027. Loss and damage, which was covered by the Warsaw Mechanism, there was no financial mechanism agreed. A few pledges were made, but it was agreed that there will be a 2-year dialogue on this, which will hopefully come up with some results. These are the pledges which India has made. Deepak has covered this, so I won't uh, repeat it, only to say that PM said that developed countries must make 1 trillion available as soon as possible. So it's clearly that this is all conditional on 1 trillion being made available. African group asked for 1.3 trillion. Then on the sides, there were other agreements like India, UK, Modi and Johnson on the Green Grids initiative for linking up all the grids. And there's a ministerial steering group for this. And this is also related to the ISA project of One Sun, One World, One Grid initiative. The US announced it will join the ISA, which was the most welcome development. Now I think we should hope that China also can be persuaded to join the ISA. Now, on the sidelines of COP26, a lot of other results came out. One was on ending new hydrocarbon exploration and exploitation, then ending public funding for coal, gas, and oil, and then phasing out of internal combustion engines, then on sustainable agriculture, and then a global methane pledge to cut down methane and short-lived pollutants, such as HFCs. HFCs are the ones in the Montreal Protocol. They were substituting the earlier things, hydrofluorocarbons, but they are extremely high global warming potential. And so there was a Kigali amendment to the Montreal Protocol, which said that we will phase out these and replace it by other refrigerants like ammonia and carbon dioxide and so on. So these were all on the sides of COP26. These were the results. There was also the announcement of China-US, which is a very interesting one, and they will work on all these 6 or 7 areas: regulatory frameworks, decarbonization, electrification, and then on circular economy, and very important, the development of technology like carbon capture, use and sequestration, and direct air capture. And then, of course, methane control, and they have agreed to establish a working group. So this could be a model for future US and other major emitters to agree on climate change action. Maybe India and the US can have something similar. It's possible that this may happen. So COP26 was a qualified success. It was not a failure. It was not blah, blah. There were important results achieved on the side, but then it didn't meet the ambitions of everyone. But what will happen is that each successive COP will improve the determined contributions and actions to cut gases. And then you can have the new emerging technology of carbon capture, use and sequestration, which will remove carbon dioxide from coal-fired power plants, steel and cement plants. From the emission stack, they can remove all the carbon dioxide and recycle it into useful products. That is from concentrated sources. And then from direct air capture, from the air itself, you can have technology to remove it and turn it into fuels, etc., or sequester it. And then the old biological removal, which means through forestry and agriculture, and also through biological organisms. There are plenty of organisms which can capture carbon dioxide and turn it into oxygen. Remember that in geological times, the Earth's atmosphere had 27% CO2 and no oxygen. It was because of cyanobacteria, which converted all that carbon dioxide and produced the 21% oxygen we now have to live on. So there's a lot of scope for biological removal, better and cheaper photovoltaic cells and energy storage devices. In the meantime, we have traditional pump storage systems and so on. So there's a lot of technology which is going on, technological development. And the other point is that from the CO2 which is actually emitted, 45% actually goes into the oceans. We don't have enough understanding of how the oceans play a role in carbon, in greenhouse gases and climate change. The IPCC had reported last year, they had issued for the first time a massive report on the role of the cryosphere, which means the ice caps and the oceans. So, although 71% of the Earth's surface is covered by oceans, our understanding of the ocean's role in all this is very, very poor. And even the measurement of data of temperatures and other parameters of the oceans is still in the early stage. And they 45% of CO2 goes into the oceans, so it's a big factor. They also emit a lot of water vapor, which is also a greenhouse gas. So these are things which the scientific community must study in more detail. Now, there are some concerns. Global warming is more severe towards the higher latitudes, which might be a good thing because most of the developed countries are in the higher latitudes. And like in the Montreal Protocol, when they were affected by ultraviolet, they took action. So the countries in the higher latitudes, definitely they'll be more interested in taking action on climate change. Then there are more frequent, unpredictable, and severe extreme climate events. We have seen that over the last 2 years: floods, heat waves, even countries, extreme north, like Vancouver and British Columbia, they have had fires and they have had floods now. So global climate modeling needs to be actually improved a lot in order to be able to calculate some of these things. It's a big scientific challenge ahead. So I'll just say a few words about one of the areas of technology, that is direct carbon dioxide capture. Here are two companies which already are marketing projects. And one of them, Climeworks, has set up projects in Iceland as well as Italy to remove carbon dioxide from the air. It's a kind of pilot project. Another one is based in Canada. They are also doing this, converting carbon dioxide from the air into fuels. What they all say is that we need to have a policy framework which will help this process in some way. I will not talk about this much because this is going into the area of pricing carbon dioxide. Something like $80 or $100 per ton. If you put a carbon tax, that money you use, you can finance carbon removal. So what we need in India, which we don't have, is a policy framework for promoting direct CO2 capture. The technology is there, companies are there ready with the solutions. And since we have got coal-fired plants, we can remove the CO2 from there. It's something we can certainly look at. So let's hope we do something in the future. So I'll stop here. Thank you very much. And look forward to questions.
Thank you. Just to mention that if you could just put down briefly the questions you like to ask, and we will